All right, we will be getting started. Michelle, are we ready? You ready to go? Okay, wonderful. Good evening, and welcome everyone to the Administration and Finance, Recreation and Parks Committee meeting and Public Safety and Public Works Committee meetings for October 15, 2024. Our elected body, Mayor Kurt Wilson, Councilmember Christine Hall, Councilmember David Johnson, Councilmember G. Lee Hills, Councilmember William Morthland. I'm Randy Knighton, the City Administrator, joined with the Assistant City Attorney, Joe Cusack, as well as Deputy City Clerk and Executive to the Council, Michelle Miller. The purpose of committee meetings are for city departments to convey information to Mayor and City Council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda, as well as provide updates of vital information essential to the operation of city government. By ordinance, the committee consists of the mayor and council and the city administrator, who serves as the chair of committee meetings. And this is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while we certainly welcome members of the public, we do not take public comments or questions during committee meetings, unless specifically authorized by mayor and council. Public comments and questions are received at the regular city council meetings at 7:00 p.m. at city council chambers on the second and fourth Monday of each month and fifth Monday in open forum. We do encourage residents to please engage our online platforms and reach out to our city staff if you have any questions. And we also encourage everyone to visit the city website for meetings, events, and departmental information, as well as Roswell365.com for a calendar of events. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for the Administration, Finance, Recreation, and Parks Committee meeting for September 10th, 2024. We'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Hills. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you. We will note for the record that under Public Works, we show no action items. Under Community Development, item number 2, as listed on the agenda, consideration of a text amendment to the Unified Development Code, Article 10, Section 10.3.27 and 10.3.32. All right.
I just wanted to make sure everyone had it.
Same item in the packet. Okay. All right, good.
So the text amendment we're proposing to initiate is to the sign article, section 10.3.27, signs requiring a permit table, and section 10.3.32, crown sign. The first change is reflected in the signs requiring a permit table, and that's to allow a crown sign use in the DX downtown district. You'll also notice the standards column of this. Those references have been wrong for a while, so we're taking this opportunity when updating this table, and this next slide shows the new references. So it's no changes to the code, just the fact that those tables reflect incorrect standards column information. And then the next item relates back to the crown signs in the DX zoning district and proposes that crown signs dimension subsection A, sign area, max per sign, is amended to include section A, 1, the sign area max per sign in a DX zoning category on buildings 5 stories or higher shall be a maximum of 90 square feet. I'm going to continue on in the black and then we'll come back to the red. And that crown signs shall be prohibited on all other buildings within the DX zoning category. This would allow signs, crown signs on buildings that have received a conditional use approval for 5 stories or higher and limit the size of those crown signs to 90 square feet. We did notice some discrepancies in preparing for today's initiation where crown signs have some items within the code that allow them to have channel lettering, which is not allowed in the historic district, and internal illumination. So we're proposing that the intent of this amendment was to allow crown signs in those limited conditions, and that the intent was to allow for channel lettering and internal illumination. I have included some examples so we can know what we're talking about. This is an example from our code of a crown sign. It's at the upper story of the building, and that would be representative of channel lettering. Same with the Hyatt Place sign. So again, we're proposing to allow crown signs in the historic district with this text amendment, but only on properties that have received conditional use to allow 5 or more stories, and to limit the size of that to 90 square feet in those instances. The historic district sign code regulations do not allow the use of channel lettering or internal illumination. So that's where that additional sentence came in. This is an example of a crown sign and how we measure it. And then I've included some illumination examples. So this is what is allowed in the historic district now: external illumination, uplighting, downlighting. This is an example of internal illumination, which would be permitted on a crown sign, but not necessarily in the historic district unless we state that. This is what backlit illumination is. And that's it. I know that was a lot, and I'll go back to that, the verbiage that's really, maybe have questions.
All right. Thank you for the presentation from our Planning and Zoning Director, Ms. Jeannie Payton. Thank you very much. Any questions or no comments from Mayor and Council? Yes, Council Member Hills.
I need to pass this out first, if you don't mind. Just Thank you. There's just some examples of things that I did a quick search just today. So, I'm going to give a little backstory just to justify my position on this, or to make sure that everybody knows that I'm not on attack on anyone. I have been working with Aramark, which is Vestas, formerly known as Aramark, since I was 19 years old. I've had their linens, their bar mats, their uniform chef's coats delivered to where I've worked since 1989. Fantastic company. Stellar service, stellar people in Alabama at 2 different off-premise catering places, at a restaurant in Alabama, at 2 off-premise catering facilities, one of the largest one in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was the first salesperson there. We used Aramark. There's one more in Raleigh. Oh, I managed a dinner ballroom dancing club under one of the caterers for whom I worked. We used Aramark. And then here in Georgia, for multiple places. And I believe it was earlier this year, I met Miss Kim Scott, and she's the CEO president of Vestas, and I expressed to her what a fabulous and stellar run I personally have had with this company. So I just want you to know this has nothing to do with Vestas and very much to do with my perspective on the historic district. So I also want to say that Jeannie has been excellent in answering my questions. This has nothing to do with community development and more about the city of Roswell not having our historic act together, in my opinion. I may be proven wrong this evening, but the first picture I have talked about since we first talked about lumens and other things, that this is going to look like racetrack down in Smyrna, in the middle of the historic district, or the north end of the historic district. I have a lot of heartburn with that. A lot of heartburn. I know this is not exactly what we're voting on, but we don't get another chance for Old Lee Hills to talk about this. So you get to the next picture, and we've got Inspire, which you see going down 400 as you hit Sandy Springs. And you can see, I have no issue with Vesta's, their graphics. I have no issue with their branding. Neither do I with Racetrack or Inspire. And I even threw my husband's company under the bus with Novellus, you know, right in the middle of Buckhead, where there's plenty of businesses that have this kind of signage. Doesn't look anything like Roswell. Nothing like our historic district. And then I went and did a little quick search, and I have actually been stalking Columbus, Georgia. Yes, another mill village, another mill city, where they have reclaimed. I've got pictures of, yes, the Masons Lodge, formerly known as the Coleman Chevrolet dealership, formerly known as the Old Methodist Church, with signage right there. No, it's not a 3-story, 5-story building. But we've got all sorts of incredible signage that is historic in nature that we can do a tune-up on in the city of Roswell and make Vestas shine on a brand-new building and blend in with the historic nature and character of our downtown. And I even put in there the Groveway storage building. I just took these pictures on my way in this evening. So a couple of things I want to share about that is that I don't think we've got this right yet. And I am so excited about the economic development with Southern Post. The size and scale of that building does not suit my taste, I will say. It's growing on me. I'm excited about the businesses going in. I know a couple of owners of the businesses that are in there. As I mentioned, I met the CEO, President, Kim Scott. She probably doesn't remember me from Adam. I don't care. I think it's a great company. Here's the deal. We don't have this right. I can't have a gas station headquarters type sign going on the top of this building in the historic district. Glad the space is activated, glad that the headquarters is bringing jobs here. I'm all in. I have no issue with the branding for the business whatsoever, but I take huge issue with the fact that we don't have a way to protect our historic district. And Highway 9 blowing right through there, it is a billboard saying we don't know what we're doing with our signs in the historic district. I'm just blown away. So I'm not excited about this being a crown sign with these. We're giving in on allowing channel lettering that doesn't go here anyway, and internal illumination that isn't allowed in the historic district. So tonight we're selling out on those two items to make it easy. So I have a lot of heartburn on that. It's very modern, and that's not what our historic district is screaming. Our historic district is saying, save me and protect me, and we need to have a complete brand package or something by which when an applicant comes in, we can say, these are the 42 options that we would like you to consider that would fit here. And I just don't think we've exhausted our talent on what can go here. So I thank you for hearing me out. I'm a big fat no.
Okay. Other comments, questions regarding this item? Yes, Councilmember Johnson.
If someone was to apply for a sign in this zoning category, would it go in front of HPC or city council or any, like the design part?
No, sign permits do not go in front of HPC. If we were to entertain that scenario, they could only regulate the type of sign, which we're establishing
Here.
in this text amendment. But content and design is something that you cannot control on a sign because of the First Amendment.
Councilmember Hills.
As city leadership and being good stewards of our residents' wishes, particularly for this area, the historic district, I think we should have a plan internally for that. And I do think there should be some sort of governance that we give or guidance and that we meet with, I mean, we're late now, but that we're not selling out at the finish line here. And I know it's too late on this, but we should have had these conversations. It was 9 months ago. I can't believe how much time we spent on lumens and I forget the other thing, the color or the warmth of the light and one other thing. And I kept asking about this. Like, this doesn't fit. This doesn't fit here. And it's so funny that this came up because I was just thinking, I wonder when we're going to get to that, because I know we're getting ready to open. And here we are. And I don't feel like we have a solid solution. It's not one that I represent a lot of people in this city who feel exactly the way I do. Before I even knew what Southern Post was going to be when it grew up, when the skillet went down, I had no idea that I would be in this role. But I remember people talking about it, and they were concerned about us losing the character of our historic downtown. And to me, even if there's no possibility of having another 5-story building that the channel lettering and the internal lighting can go up, I mean, we've got an election next year. There could be 4 faces new sitting up here, and that could change in a heartbeat, in a New York heartbeat. And we've sold out tonight, in the first step before it goes to council. So I just want to emphasize, we have a lot at stake here in setting a precedent, in my opinion, and that we have a responsibility to protect what this looks like. I think we have a lot of considerations to make here. And again, no disrespect to anyone involved with Southern Post. I want them to be making so much money, they're rolling around in it and just driving the economy. Same with our staff here. We have a responsibility to arm our folks that meet with our applicants first so that they can help them make good decisions based on what our residents want and what the vision and mission of this mayor and council is. So, thank you.
Councilmember Hall.
Thank you. And thanks for all that background and information. I believe we've been discussing this for at least 9 months or close to a year. And Jeannie, correct me, I know you're newer, but when we passed the UDC and we had the sign specifications for the historic district, basically were buildings limited to 2-story, or we weren't having larger buildings at the time, taller buildings?
I believe the background is that conditional use gives the approval for anything taller than what's allowed in the historic district. And then specifically that crown signs are not permitted in that district right now.
And typically crown signs go on taller buildings, or do you put crown signs, what makes it a crown sign? I mean, would you put a crown sign on a 2-story building?
I don't think typically it's a matter of the location of usually someone wants their sign right over their business. So we regulate the height of the sign above the sidewalk to 18 feet. So that would be a wall sign, where a crown sign allows, a property to stand out more because the sign is moved to the upper portion of the building.
And so that's why basically we're addressing this. We are looking at an opportunity for folks that have a greater than 5-story building to be able to put their business name on the building.
Yes, and when you look at a mixed-use development like Southern Post, you have a stacking of buildings at different heights. And so a typical wall sign would not necessarily even be effective in locating the business in that kind of scenario. So that's where a crown sign might come in and be attractive to an applicant.
So this has also been discussed at length at with the economic development team. And the purpose of this was to basically assist to have a business that comes in to be able to put their name of the business on there on a basically 5-story or greater building, so that they have the visibility. And this is the method or the vehicle that we have to, or that we're choosing to be able to do it. Is that right?
I would agree with that. I would also add to that economic development, businesses, uses, they evolve over time. And a lot of times, something like our UDC does not allow for the changes that happen within the commercial.
The code hasn't kept up.
Yeah. So, I think that there are 3 components to this: whether or not to allow crown signs in the historic district, whether or not to allow channel lettering, does that achieve a look that you want, and whether or not to allow it to be internally lit versus backlit or halo lit. So I think that when you consider what you're trying to achieve, it could be broken down into those 3 scenarios, and deciding, like, if you don't want crown signs at all, then it kind of eliminates the need to discuss it further. But if there are instances where crown signs represent moving forward with the pace of how times change, then how would you want that to look in your historic district? The conditional use has been granted in the historic district for the larger building. So this would go along with that consideration eventually as these businesses are occupying the spaces.
So is there a preference of the type of lighting that would be preferred one over the other, or?
At this point, it comes down to maybe my professional opinion, and I think that crown signs in their essence are channel lettering, and to force it into a different style, since the channel lettering isn't allowed, might give you a look that you did not intend. So the channel lettering might not be as egregious of the act of approval. And there are different types of channel lettering, and again, it might be more so, you can see the Hyatt Place, those are channel letters that are internally illuminated. And that gives a very different look than when you consider something that is a channel letter that has backlit, which is allowed in the historic district.
So this is currently allowed in the historic district?
The backlighting of a sign is, the channel lettering is not. So I know these are nuances, and since we don't look at signs every day, there might be some more examples that could add to our understanding. But you can see how, the Chico's, the Kingsfield sign, that gives a very different look than an internal, more commercial looking sign, and could maybe lend itself more if you consider those variations within what we're considering. It could add to that historic flavor while still letting, commercial uses and the way we interact with space and place to evolve.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Further comments, questions? Mayor Wilson.
Couple questions. So would it change your perspective on this particular piece that's moving ahead? I'm familiar with it, but I'm not that familiar with it. I've been involved, but I'm not that been involved. And I've got some questions I'd like to ask the ED team a little bit on this. But Jeannie, would it change your perspective if this were the only 5-story building in the historic district?
Slightly. I think not to add to the question that you asked, but to answer another question also, it does change my perspective in that this building in particular that we're discussing this related to is not located on the major thoroughfare. So I don't think the effect
It's different.
yeah, there is a difference in that.
So I think that's a great distinction, and there you're getting my mind percolating a little bit. But I think I have a little bit of view into the 20-year plan. I think I know where most of the placemaking, where we plan on it going. I think I know where the council's mind lies on that and the economic team's lies on that. And in the historic district, I don't think there is any intent to ever have a 5-story building again.
Okay.
So I think this is a unique 5-story building. I think the rest will be 4, perhaps 4.5 with the topography issue, like a 4, but I don't think that we'll ever be, from my knowledge, as it's currently laid out in planning, I don't think there's a 5-story in what we call downtown, midtown, maybe uptown, but not downtown or midtown. So definitely not in the historic district, from what I know. So that's why I really I want to make sure that we're not doing a one-size-fits-all approach, thinking that there's something coming that may not be coming, particularly from a professional perspective, because I heard you say that earlier. It's like professionally, hey, you got more of these coming, this makes some sense. The second thing is, this is probably a question you can't answer on the Inspire, because we're all familiar with the Inspire building on Sandy Springs off of George 400, obviously large footprint, high visibility. Is this larger than 90 square feet?
Oh, yes.
How many square feet is this?
Oh, I
It's okay if you don't know.
probably over 200.
Over 200,
would be my
okay.
guess.
So in fairness, it's probably not fair to use this picture in terms of a juxtaposition of what the signage is going to look like if it's at least twice the size of the actual sign of the potential sign that might be used for this particular sign.
I do believe that the 90 square feet was thought of intentionally in relation to the historic district and allowing it there, as opposed to a crown sign that would be allowed anywhere else.
And the question I have, I guess, for Will, you're on the ED team. Daryl's here, Joe's here, Christina's here, Sharon's here. So when the ED team was going through this, right? There, and I hear, the UDC always comes up as problematic. You know, for example, like, there were some good examples of some channel letters with some backlighting to me that looks pretty logical, pretty simple, and probably would have given the client what they wanted at the end of the day in that particular area, but we can't do that. So we're having to do a big, giant, one-size-fits-all approach to take care of, it looks like, an issue that we've got. Will, can you take us a little bit through on how we got here? Because obviously, someone must have said at some point, or I'm assuming at several points, that someone said, hey, here's the signage you can do, right? And I can't imagine that this was ever, that the client knew that knew what the zoning and the sign requirements were when they came to Roswell, right? So there was no guarantee of this signage happening. So how did we get here?
So I'm going to have to ask for some help on this, because this has been a big conversation. Daryl is here, yes? And who else do we need to bring up for this? Because this was a long conversation. Okay. Reason I say that is because the day that this was discussed, I was in the meeting. Right when the topic came up, I had to step out, and by the time I came back into the meeting, they had moved on. So that's the reason I can't address your particular statement there. But we do have people here.
Well, I just want to say that at one point Lee makes, I think, that's why I asked the question. Because if it's the belief of the city government, if there's a disconnect, which it sounds like there might be, if there's a belief from an economic perspective that we are doing this because we're going to build more five-story buildings in the historic district, we kind of got to take that off the map, because it's my understanding that we're not going to be building any five-story buildings this one got approved before we got in, right? Like I said, I think I know the playbook decently on the placemaking for the next 20 years. Not to say it's no guarantee, but don't think there's going to be any five-story buildings in the historic district.
So I can comment on that, and you're correct. Through every meeting that I've been through, I've not been privy to any kind of conversation around a 5+ story building. It's all been at most 4 to 4.5 with topography. But no, there's never been a conversation of just throwing away the historic charm of Roswell to go after a high building.
So, and what I'm sensitive to Lee's argument is do we have a plan going forward that is in concert with our economic plan? And the answer to the question when it comes to UDC is no, we do not.
Sure.
Right? And that's an equation that we are not going to solve tonight. And so what I would say, Lee, because the experts are here fixing to pound on me a little bit, is knowing that is that we are always stuck in solving piecemeal for our larger plan until we solve for the UDC. And that is not a great solution, because your argument is well-founded when you say we do not have a comprehensive discussion, an argument, an answer for the historic district on signage. What I want to share with our fellow residents and fellow businesses is there are not five-story buildings coming into the historic district. So, not on our watch. So, and people need to know that. So if I'm reading this correctly, and Mr. Attorney, you tell me if I can't say this, I believe that there is only one five-story building in the historic district, and there is only one client underneath this particular potential thing that would qualify for this one particular sign. Is that correct? That's correct. So ostensibly, I don't know what the law says, I can or cannot say about this, is that we're talking about one sign, correct? One time. Jackie?
It would be each the building, they'd be allowed to have 2 signs total on their building.
2 signs.
2 signs.
Thanks for correcting me.
Those would be on different sides.
On different sides.
So, and one thing that, to make clear on this, is that these are not on road frontage. So, like the example, this will not, will this be seen from Highway 9? Can you see these signs from Highway 9?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you, please don't say anything from the gallery. Forgive me. So there's two signs, and where are those two signs in adjacency of the building?
So based on what they showed at the ED meeting, what I recall, because it's been at least 4 months or longer, maybe. It's been a while. I believe they had one that was, so this building sits behind the front building. So one was going to go on the side that's kind of facing the building in front of it, but you could see it from Alpharetta Street. And the other one was going to go on the side portion that is facing, I think it was the interior of the development, which also could be seen from Alpharetta Street. So yes, they are visible. Even though they're behind the building, they'd still be visible from the street. Either way you drive, as Councilmember Hill said, you'd be able to view one of the signs.
And what options would this potential tenant have today if this was not approved?
So the only thing they can do today under the DX zoning is a 32 square foot wall sign.
At 18 feet over the sidewalk.
Right.
At 18 feet over the sidewalk,
Correct.
So-
which is a bad look. That the 18 foot over the sidewalk piece, correct? From a standpoint of aesthetics, if you've got, they're taking 40,000 square feet.
It's possible that it wouldn't look ideal on the mass and scale of the building.
Thank you for saying that more correctly. The look might be compromised on the based upon the size and the mass of the building with an 18 square foot sign?
32 square.
32 square foot sign. Daryl, any commentary on how we got here? Because I'm guessing someone's been talking to the poor client about this.
So this is something that came up many months ago when Southern Post was looking to land Vestas as a tenant. This is something that they've talked about wanting for some time, and they decided to move forward knowing that the square footage, knowing the restrictions in the historic district being the 32-foot signage. And so they decided to move forward with that. But this is something that they've continued to express interest in regarding, having a larger sign, having a crown sign. So
When are they moving into their space?
I'm not sure when they are moving in, but I think, if I'm right, Jennifer was having an open house around the end of October, and I think they were supposed to be in around that time frame. But we can take a look and find the business license and see if it's been submitted yet.
But this sign, if approved tonight, would go to council, would probably still not meet the timetable of them being able to put up the sign in time for that, correct?
No.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I yield my time on the floor.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Morthland?
Jeannie, to the mayor's point, once we leave tonight, then the next steps on the sign are what? What are the next steps?
It would go to the Historic Preservation Commission as a discussion item. It would go before the Planning Commission for a recommendation prior to coming for first and second reading to mayor and council.
And through that process, we have the ability of, I don't know the difference between lumens and luminaires and all the things, so I'm just going to call it warmness and brightness of the light. We have an opportunity to address, as compared to what I'm seeing right there at the Hyatt Place being white light, we have the ability of addressing, okay, we would like for this to be a warmer, less intense.
There is an opportunity to add to the text as we are proposing it during that process to consider items of consideration for it.
Councilmember Hills?
Thank you, sir. Just to follow up, Mayor, I want to just reiterate to your point, asking the question with the Inspire building, that is a humongous sign for a humongous building. My point is that in a smaller, quaint setting like here, the scale, I'm okay with the scale, but I think people are going to relate that to, oh my gosh, we live in this quaint historic district, and we've got, because the first thing I said was, oh my gosh, it's going to look like the racetrack building. I mean, I've been fixated on that doggone place since we first started talking about it. But I think that's what the feel is going to be here. I wasn't insinuating it would be the same size as the racetrack sign in actual real time. The other thing is, I don't have necessarily a problem with the 90 square feet or whatever the size is. Mine is about the slickness, about the urban, facing a highway, interstate, doesn't fit. I mean, back to the Groveway on the storage unit, or some of the older buildings, the pictures from old days in Roswell. And it doesn't have to be chalk paint or whatever that is. But there are other things that I think we could accomplish for Vestas. I don't have a problem with them being visible. That's not my point. My point is how slick and humongous looking this crown sign effort is going to be. And you will see too, best I can tell, as you're driving on Highway 9. And I could get on board with that, but flashing, or not flashing, but it's going to be flashy. I just think it's going to be really obvious and stick out. Just clarification.
Councilmember Hall?
Thank you. Jeannie, did you show us some pictures of signs that were allowed in the DX in the historic district that have different?
Unfortunately, I don't know that I captured. It would be more like the melting pot with external illumination, a halo illumination, and a box sign, including the signage.
So that's allowed in a historic district, a box sign, which is, I'm sorry, very unattractive when I look at it. And the external illumination.
That's what we have.
Is there,
Let me look through.
is any of that allowed?
These would not, these are channel letters internally lit. So this is what is allowed in a crown sign, but not the historic district. So that's where a consideration can be given. And then this represents backlit illumination with channel letters. I think, yes, every one of these represents channel lettering with a backlight. The backlighting that illuminates behind the lettering is allowed in the historic district. However, the channel lettering is not permitted right now.
And is that just a screw up in the code to have it that way?
I think it's intentional. I think that historically, this might not be considered accurate the way that the sign similar, I mean, if you think of the melting pot one in a more, I don't think that they would choose that style. But the intent is that in historic times, that would be what a sign would look like.
Councilmember Johnson?
Can you go back to the lettering, where the red lettering was?
The red,
Yeah, no, on the ordinance where it's. Keep going.
Ordinance part.
Keep going, but-
The text.
oh, the
Oh,
text.
the text,
sorry.
yeah, the text, yeah,
Okay.
there, thank you.
I heard letter.
A couple questions. Number one, crown signs will only go in buildings 5 stories or higher, right? So we have no issues if there's a new hotel built in downtown Roswell, they're not getting a crown sign because it's gonna be 4.5 stories, correct? So, number two, since they can do the, what do you call it, the wall sign? And we're really talking about one applicant, if we allow this channel lettering, can we take away the wall sign as part of that? So they're not double dipping? Does that make sense?
You're saying allowing.
If we allow the crown sign, can we take away the wall sign as part of that? So they don't have the wall sign and the crown sign. Does that
I
make?
believe you would effectively do that. They
Okay.
would be limited, yeah.
And I would also add, to eliminate what we saw with the melting pot, because I don't think that's something we would want either. Should we say that this may only allow for channel lettering and internal illumination. So we don't get the box sign of external illumination. There are rattlesnakes out there.
Mayor Wilson.
David, I think your comments elicit exactly what the problem is when you start getting into solutioneering. Now, to Will's point, you guys have been working on this for 9 months, and this was the solution you came up with. To Lee's point, it is not a comprehensive answer in relation to the historic district. It's a one-off ostensibly, although legally it's not a one-off. And so it is problematic in that you are basically doing one thing, one time, one place. When you have not answered what your long-term, you answered it a long time ago with respect to the historic district. But the current leadership of the city, including the HBC, the Planning Commission, the Community Development Department, the Economic Development Department, the city leadership, and the elected council, have not weighed in on current measures of what the historic area of Roswell should look like, the historic district. And so, you're shaking your head, am I wrong?
Oh, no, you're right.
Okay.
Shaking my head.
And so that is a conversation, quite frankly, because of bandwidth and all the other pieces, that we just have not weighed in on that. Because you're bringing up something, because Lee has a different opinion than Will. Will has a different opinion than David. David has a different opinion than Sarah. Sarah has a different opinion than Alan. Alan has a different opinion than Christine. I agree with all 6 of you who disagree. But the point is at some point, the elected leadership, the governing of the city, are going to have to make some decisions about the historic district. We're pretty much, or we're going to live with what we got. And what this is an opportunity, good or bad, depending upon your perspective, to change one thing for one client. Now, that's not the legal definition. We're changing it for any building over 5 stories. But all I want to state for the record is there are not going to be any more buildings over 5 stories in the historic district as long as this current leadership is in place. So I think you do have a problem. Lee, you brought it up. Because I don't want you or me or Will or David or Christine to weigh heavily in on the historic district right now, because we're not prepared to. We have too many other things that take precedent over weighing in on the standards of the historic district. We have standards in place. Some of them we probably like, some we probably don't like. Some could probably be improved, some probably could be modified, some could probably be, done away with. I don't know, but I know that's an exhaustive process. And I know that the governing body, the elected council, has to weigh in on that. And we're not prepared to do that. I will say is that I don't agree 100%, but again, it's just an opinion, just like David. David's solutioneering. Like, this sounds like a sensible solution to a one-time problem. That's what it sounds like. It sounds sensible. If you're casting in the light, I've got to solve for the historic district, or this is going to screw up the historic district, that's an argument you're going to win every time. You're going to win that argument every time. If you're trying to solve for one practical matter, with recognizing that you are not trying to solve for the historic district long-term, that too is a practical answer. So this is going to be about votes, I'm afraid. And both people are going to be happy and unhappy on both sides of this equation. And that's the bad news about being the elected body. We get to weigh in. I yield my time, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Further comments or questions regarding this matter? Councilmember Morthland?
Jeannie, one last question. Has Estes sent in some kind of conceptual picture to us around what they're asking for?
I have not received it in planning and zoning.
So that, we've basically taken up 30 minutes of running around trying to figure this out, and we really don't even have a concept from them of what their vision is for this. We're trying to understand what backlighting and luminaires and halo and all the other things, but we still don't understand what they're truly visioning in the end product here. My gathering, based off of when we first talked about this as compared to today, we still don't have a concept in mind.
not for the staff that would review the sign. I believe it's come before economic development, but no further.
So, Mr. Knighton, City Administrator Knighton, we've got two choices. One is we can, as a group, go forward with the understanding that this is going to go in front of the other two commissions, and with our feedback to that commission around, we would like to see some conceptuals and let the commissions have commentary on those conceptuals before it comes back to us, is one. Or we postpone this until we, to your point, get further down the road on exactly what we're looking to do in the historic district when it comes to this particular item.
Mayor Wilson.
That's my point, Will. If that's the choice,
Yeah.
you'll be long dead and buried probably, brother. We are not going to be getting to the historic district, I don't believe, anytime soon. I would like to say, hey, we're beginning in the UDC next year or the year after. Michelle's on board. Jackie's on board. We're working on it. But the reality is, there's only so much bandwidth inside the organization. There's only so much bandwidth among the elected leadership. And I would tell you, if you'll forgive me, I think it's a false choice. If the choice is wait till we weigh in on the historic district, this business will be in a place, will be inside of this building for 2 to 3 years at the earliest before you come down with a decision. I will say, you do allow this to be bantered a little bit. If you take it out of committee tonight, you do put it in the hands of the HPC for comment. You put it in the hands of Planning Commission for comment. Both those groups of people have the desire and the time to evaluate this. I do think that there has been some drawings submitted, if I think, to the economic team. It's been bantered around in terms of conversation. I thought on your Thursday economic stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
Some time ago.
So I think there's an ideal of what it looks like. Not to say that that means it's guaranteed, but. So I'm going to go where you're going, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to suggest that a motion be made and voted on at this juncture.
Councilmember Hills.
Real quick, Mayor, before we vote, I have no intention of holding this client up, none. I will absolutely bring these things back up when it comes. I'm going to move this along tonight, just so everybody knows where I'm coming from. But I have a lot of heartburn over this, and I'm well aware. I'm talking about a woolly mammoth. We're talking about something humongous that needs resolving, and I'm well aware, and thank you for articulating that, Mayor. I just want everybody to know my concerns about it and why. But Vestas is a great company. They're bringing jobs. I could go on and on and on. I'm tickled to death they're here. Has nothing to do with them. We've got an internal problem, and I would be remiss if I didn't vocalize that. So
I think your point's well
second
taken.
your motion.
All right, is that a form of a motion, sir?
I'm not making this motion. I will let- There you go.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Johnson. We have a second.
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Hills. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, that passes unanimously to move this
Guys.
item forward. Thank you very much. All right, the next item is listed on the agenda under transportation. Item number 3, consideration to approve the functional use of Church Circle. Mr. Littlefield.
Thank you, Mr. Knighton. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yeah, this is consideration to approve the functional use of Church Circle. A little bit of background, staff is seeking approval on the proposed concept to change the functional use of Church Circle from the current one-way northbound direction to a two-way functionality on an approximately 100-foot section of the northernmost portion of Church Circle from the intersection with Jones Drive to the newly constructed rear parking lot entrance of the Roswell Junction Food Hall. I do have maps that'll show you what this actually is. In addition, staff is seeking approval on the proposal to change the functional use of the remaining portion of Church Circle from a one-way northbound direction from Connemara Road to the newly constructed rear parking lot entrance to the Roswell Food Hall to a multi-use trail. Here's a map of the area. You can see on the bottom middle of your screen is Church Circle. Okay, here you go. Church Circle is right here. Connemara Road is right here. It's currently a one-way use going northbound to which is Jones Drive right here. And this is the food hall. This is now a parking lot. There is an entrance here, and I'll show you a map of that as well. The portion that they want to change to a two-way direction is about right here. It's about 100 feet to Jones Drive. We did have some concerns about sight distance that was brought up to us by a citizen. We went out and checked those. There's currently a bigger sight distance going in the direction that it is today. So that won't be fixed. And I've got a few pictures to show you from my vehicle that'll kind of explain the sight distance issue a little bit. This is the map that shows the existing proposal, which was to make this a two-way functionality of Church Circle. If the multi-use trail is not approved, Church Circle will just come up from Connemara as a one-way directional use and go around this concrete island here. The concrete island will actually divert cars, so if they're coming to the southbound Church Circle, they can turn into the parking lot. The way it was approved was pretty much like a one-way directional in and out, but a lot of the citizens expressed concern that live in the area because human nature, there is parking here. Human nature, you see where you're going and you're going to want to turn into the first place that you get to. And if you turn onto Jones Drive here, one-way direction here, if you're going to go to the food hall, you actually have to go down Jones Drive to Connemara, through the neighborhood, past the existing houses, and then circle back around. Circle back around, go out to Highway 9, make a left, and then come back into the entrance, which is right here. So what the developer proposed to fix that is to make this two-way use. We did a traffic count out here. It was about 33 cars a day that use this Church Circle. It's not a lot of cars for a transportation standpoint. The detours aren't exceptionally long. If you're coming out of Connemara, you can go up Jones Drive and out here, or you can continue on and go out to 9 a little further down, a little further south. Depending on which direction you go and probably the time of day, because you're crossing 2 lanes versus 1 lane, depending on the day on Highway 9 is what the citizens would use to get out. So it's probably a mixed bag of people go different directions, different time of day, or different directions on Highway 9. This is the proposal that would make this a multi-use trail. They would put bollards up here. They would put bollards at the Connemara entrance. And then those bollards would be spaced wide enough to fit a golf cart, but you can't fit a car through. When I was out there today, I didn't see any vehicles. I did see people already using it as a multi-use trail, just kind of walking up, walking their baby, actually. The developer has stated that he would improve Church Circle if it was turned into a multi-use trail. He would put a top sealant coat on it to make it look pretty. The existing edges are broke up. It's not in the best of shape, honestly. He would saw cut those edges, make it look nice. So he would make all of those improvements. The city would maintain the ownership of the right-of-way, so it would be a city multi-use trail. And then we would carry on with the maintenance moving forward. Financial impact, there is no financial impact to the city. The developer has agreed to make improvements on Church Circle if converted to a multi-use trail. They've already performed the widening for the two-way section if it's approved. If not, we've just got an improved intersection with Jones Drive, so it doesn't really hurt us either way. But it does protect the citizens. I have not met with all citizens, but I've met with several on site, talked with several on the phone. And like I said, we did check site distance for a citizen that had concern about that, and I'll show you pictures of that. But the city does retain all the right-of-way and ownership of the road no matter what happens. Are there any questions? I can move ahead and just show you the site distance. This is just from my vehicle going in the existing direction right here. As you can see, there's not a lot of sight distance in front of you because your car is actually angled up. This one here is the new two-way functionality. As you can see, you do have sight distance to see down there, so it's not a bad idea to have the two-way directional. This is another picture going in the northbound direction, current existing functionality of Church Circle, and it's just another example that you really can't see that much. This is us just checking. Typical way to check is just using a 3.5-foot rod and then checking where you would turn from and just checking the vertical sight distance. This is the existing Jones Drive. That is the new two-way functionality. You can't really tell by the picture, but that's showing the sight distance to the tip, so you can see the 3.5-foot object. This is in relationship to where that point is, where that guy is standing right there. It's basically right where the sidewalk starts from the parking lot, so it shouldn't be an issue for pedestrians if they wander out into the street or anything like that. So I'll go back to that. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. Littlefield. Councilmember Johnson.
If cars start parking along Connemara Drive to use the multi-use trail to access the food junction, and that becomes detriment to the quality of life of the residents on there, would you be okay with taking away the parking along the street there?
If it's a desire to do so, yes.
All right. Further comments, questions? Councilmember Morthland.
So as I'm looking at the map here, we're talking about a section that is going to the back of this parking lot, not the entire piece, correct?
Could you say that again?
Okay, so we're talking about this two-way going to the back of this parking lot.
Right here?
And it goes at approximately how far?
About 100 feet. So
About 100
about where this entrance is about where the parking lot entrance is today.
And the bollards that are going to go in, are those in case of an extreme emergency? Can we get those up, or are those permanent?
Yes, now they can be the just plastic bollards, or they can be removable, like you would have for a park entrance where you could lay them down, but they would probably be locked.
And that is the responsibility of the developer to provide those?
Yes.
Drill them.
Yeah, if this is approved, all of the cost would be incurred by the developer.
Councilmember Hall.
I think it would be smart if we as a city could weigh in on the bollards, so if they could present the options, maybe you could help provide some guidance as to what might best be suited.
Definitely do that.
All right, further comments or questions regarding this matter? Seeing none. We have a motion. Is that a motion by Councilmember Johnson? Do we have a second to move this item forward? Second by Councilmember Hills. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, we'll move this item forward to the next mayor and council meeting on the 28th. All right, thank you very much. That does conclude our committee meeting for October 15th, 2024. We'll entertain a motion of adjournment. Motion by Councilmember Johnson, second by Councilmember Morthland. All in favor? All right? All in favor? That is all in favor of adjournment. All right, thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.